Welcome back to the Paladin Network. I'm Angelo Russo. I'm here with Tony, another Paladin. We're doing a box opening for Collector's Edition. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to discuss how, on these packs, they have these little tabs that you could pull with your fingernails if you have them, but they aren't particularly safe to do that with, because when I take a look at that, it doesn't have what you normally see out of the modern style where there's a little piece of plastic that's hanging off that you can pull easily. So we're going to use a plastic box cutter on the very top. You ready for this, Tony?
I am excited and ready. I've opened a few beta starters in the past, but this is certainly going to have a lot more presence in it than a beta starter.
Okay, there should be a little bit of, you can pull on that plastic now with any luck. If not, it's really important we don't mess this part up. Since all those corners are pristine and perfect right now, we want to keep them that way.
That's right. These corners, that's the one thing I had heard historically, is they are pretty fragile, easily damageable. So I think as long as we can get the top off here gently, we should be in good shape.
Look at that, like a pro.
All right, so obviously in pack one, we've got a nice time twister right on the top.
And all of these cards are in a sequential order, every one of the packs.
Armageddon, right into a bunch of the rares. Wheel of Fortune, beautiful.
Quentin Hoover, Dark Pact, yeah.
Dingus, ooh, and there's the Underground Sea. Always great to see those.
Another beautiful Hoover right there.
It's a lot of rares stacked on top of each other here in pack one.
It continues that way for quite a while, in fact. Pack one has a lot of rares stacked in them.
Mind Twist, Stasis, Brain Geyser, the Veteran Bodyguard. That's Joe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fast Bond, Rock Hydra. Oh, and there is the Time Walk.
2 pieces of blue power here.
Beautiful.
I don't believe the third piece of blue power is in this pack. I don't believe Ancestral's in this one.
There is the Shivan. Do you say Shivan? Shivan?
You could say it either way, but I say Shivan.
Shivan?
I mean, there's no wrong way.
That's the way we learned it. Will-o'-the-Wisp. Oh, here we get into some basic.
So interesting note on the basic lands. They included 3, one of each picture, but then an additional 61. And I don't know how they settled on the 61 additional basic lands. That's not a number that's divisible by 3 or 5. So,
Boy, it's amazing to see all these rares pop in one place. That's pretty cool.
Right, with perfect surface and perfect corners, but not necessarily perfect centering. That was one of the things that plagued this set, is your left, right, and top, bottom centering.
Well, that's what's interesting, and this is something that we talked about before I actually acquired these from you, is that if something on the top is off-center, that doesn't necessarily mean the stack is going to be off-center.
Yep.
And that's what we're seeing here. And I'm not sure we'd have to have Joe get to Tavis or somebody to tell us how these were cut.
Yeah.
But certainly some of these appear to be very well centered. And there is the jet.
First Mox jet, first Mox particularly.
Very nice. Still kind of the same off-centering that we see for ABU, kind of in the same direction for that one, but still very nice.
Beautiful, lots of wonderful rares.
Oh, the fork. Dual.
So again, from a numbers perspective, there are about 9,000 of these sets, and by the day, fewer of them are sealed, obviously, in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned before, one of the reasons of opening this is so that you could play with them in our EC-style, old-school 93-94 events.
Exactly.
Let's pop our second pack, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the numbers in this set. So as it compares to the total number of rares in alpha, beta, and unlimited, and these are rough estimates from the information I was able to scrape around from the internet. We know that there are roughly 14,000 total CE, ICE sets together. 9,000 CE, like I said, and 5,000 International Collector's Edition. Well, when you compare that to numbers like Alpha, we think there's about 1,100 total rares from Alpha. And then from there, about 4,500 uncommons, I think. And, again, my numbers aren't exact, but that's to my understanding. And then the Alpha common at about 16,000-ish. That puts all the commons in these sets more scarce than the commons in Alpha. Obviously, they're distinguished as not tournament legal and with a gold border on the back. You might want to show it off right here because we haven't shown anyone these yet on the video. Yeah, and of course those, like I said, square corners. Alpha had rounded corners, as you know, more rounded radius than the standard Magic card for the history of Magic, and for a long time weren't tournament legal also because of the corners. So I think we've come full circle with this idea that the corner itself doesn't dictate whether or not the card is playable. Granted, it's not sanctionable in Wizards play, but totally legal in 93-94. Put a sleeve on it, because everyone plays with sleeves these days. Not going to cause you a problem. And it comes to things like lands. The lands in Alpha, I think, were roughly 850,000-ish or so. And in CE, because of the 61 extra lands in the set, plus the 15, a total of 76, there's about a million and a little bit of change, total CE, ICE basics. So there's slightly more than in Alpha. But Beta, there's a considerable number more, maybe 2.5 million, because there's 3 pictures, like here, and there were about 175-ish thousand, I believe, of each of the beta lands. 171,500, actually, I think, per picture. So 3 pictures times 5 gets us about 2.5 million. So those are some interesting numbers that I see here with CE.
Agree, and that was one thing as we were talking about this earlier today, that I didn't realize how much basic land there was in the ABU sets.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a bit more than I was aware of.
I like talking about the numbers because when we were talking about these were a collector's item, and that's relevant in all the areas of collecting in Magic. Is how many are printed, how many can I find, etc. And scarcity does have a correlation with desirability across a lot of Magic's history. Interestingly, I would say that we have some scenarios where we're not going to really talk about money about these, but there are some cards that are more valuable in these sets than, let's say, Unlimited. And that's an interesting scenario where, you have a card that's technically tournament legal, but worth less than a not tournament legal version of it.
And that's where we were talking about certainly the commons, right? So because there are fewer commons in the CE sets and the ICE sets as compared to the unlimited sets, and then just the allure of black bordered decks and darkening up your borders.
Yeah.
Certainly in demand.
Every single card in the CE or ICE set, however you want to look at it, is more scarce than an unlimited version. So that in itself is just a concrete fact, and it should have an effect upon the marketability of the card and so forth. And yeah, they're just pretty to look at. These are beautiful cards, and I think we're very lucky that Wizards decided to print these. And it came from an overwhelming demand for that game originally. They were I think trying to keep up pace for this game early on, and they obviously added those extra lands thinking ahead, presumably, because why would you add extra basic lands in something that's not meant to ever be played? So is it just because we got the extra space in the sheet, let's do it? Maybe that's the case, or maybe they figured that at kitchen tables people would play with these cards, and that wasn't outside of the realm of reality. People did play with these cards over the duration of the game in the last 25 years, absolutely, and you can see a huge number of players are now playing with them again in 93-94 Old School.
Not tournament legal in those days, but certainly if someone was playing around the kitchen table, I mean, it allowed you to play the decks that you couldn't otherwise afford.
Absolutely. I mean, if you get your hands on them. I mean, I had a friend who did actually buy these. He had a case of them. He paid $50. He couldn't sell them at the time for years. Couldn't sell them, and of course he wishes he still had them. Based on just the sheer scarcity and their beauty.
There's a lot of wishes all of us, a lot of us old schoolers have. Yeah.
If you haven't made several mistakes when it comes to
Hindsight.
old school, Magic, then you weren't really here.
Yep. And I guess, the thing that really strikes me, and this is, I didn't have a lot of alpha in the day, but I certainly have had a lot of beta in my my MTG years. Just the quality and the coloring of these seems really nice. They're very consistent, very striking. I mean, that's what's jumping out at me as I open these. And this is the first time I've owned a few CE cards. I used to collect Sarah Angels, like who didn't back in the day.
Sure.
But so that was, I think, the only CE version of anything I ever had was that Sarah in my Sarah collection.
My card was Juggernaut from the time I was 14 on, because that thing was a beater. I could never afford Juzam, right? So I was like, what costs 4 mana that I can go all the way home with? It was like Dark Ritual into the Juggernaut. Of course, eventually got some Juzams back in the day, but yeah.
So why doesn't that surprise me as we were playing in our Alpha 40 match the other week where you were banging on me with your Juggernauts?
Yeah, I mean, I can't play Juzam in A40. That's not even a legal card, so I'm back to Juggernaut, who totally dies to a lightning bolt.
And there's
Speak
the
of the
bolt,
devil.
which is very nice.
Yeah, that's really good card design, really good game design, having those two cards line up against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on to pack 5, which is the Soul Ring pack. Sometimes you'll see these for sale online, eBay or otherwise, in just a sealed singleton pack. You can find the entire card list. We're going to link to it at the end of our video here. There's a snapshot of an old Crystal Keep page, as well as a Magic Libraries page that kind of has some details on these cards that will be helpful for you, if you have interest in them. That breakdown of Libraries. Let's see if we're entering the Soul Ring pack. Spoilers. Yeah, there's going to be some basic lands in here.
Might need your knife again. I don't want to give too much pressure on that corner.
I see. This is where I have to not mess things up. It's like, hey, there we go. That one's, you should be able to peel from there now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now it's like being quiet because you don't want to make too big a noise and have everything go, oh no, I nicked it with my whole fingernail.
This is like multiple Christmases in one day. Beautiful Soul Ring.
6 packs of Collector's Edition.
We talked about Jeff Menges, is that how we say it? I know one of our Paladins, Jeremy, has met him. He was one of my always favorite artists of old school, but so he's in Swords to Plowshares, right?
Mm-hmm.
So cards like Consecrate Land, which I always thought was amazing art, I just wished it was on a better card. Such good art deserves to be on
I
good
honestly
cards.
love all of the original artists beyond measure. I appreciate the work they did. I appreciate getting to enjoy these still for 2.5 decades. But my very favorite Magic artist was always Quentin Hoover. I had boxes of cards I had collected to have sent away for signatures. When I lived in Portland, he wasn't too far off. I never got around to it, of course, which is my own mistake. But I still appreciate that art just to such a high degree because it was so distinctive. And I think everyone has a story about what Magic artists they love and why. Mm-hmm. Teden has that very drippy effect, and Schuler has iconic cards like Demonic Tutor and Sarah Angel. It could go on forever.
For sure.
You got Amy Weber's,
Dan Frazier on the as well.
Frazier on the boxes, yep. Weber's representation of Time Walk and such were astonishing. Every time you see that, I think your appreciation grows. And I know by today's art standard, they would be judged much more harshly, but I think you cannot take them at a time. You have to look at them and go, in the time that this was here, what were happening, where we're seeing, where they were in their careers, where gaming was at, this is all beautiful, cutting edge, wonderful art for the format of what we were doing. And then, like I said, my appreciation grew only ever will.
All right, we're winding up pack number 5. There's the Tudor. Gorgeous.
So I noticed that we haven't seen the other Moxes or a Black Lotus. I mean, are they just not one in this set?
I've heard pack 6 is the money pack.
Okay, so let's take a
hope.
look. And it's got an Island Sanctuary at the front, which is a good card in A40 if you're playing Alpha 40 or any other, just limited edition version of Magic.
This is the one we want to be careful with.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh,
Oh yeah, sure. And you've got the little cellophane pull that they gave you
the pull is intact.
to help you. Thanks. Quit trying to help, wizards.
Ballads.
Oh, hey, a trop. Volcanic island next to volcanic eruption. I think that
Nice.
was not an accident. Look at those guys. Yeah, I like how none of the sheet was wasted. It's all just straight cuts. Doppelgangers, yeah. Here's another Mox.
There's one.
Interestingly enough, the card's not perfectly flat. I don't know if you can tell that.
Years and years stood up in the box, maybe?
Yeah,
Not perfectly tight.
25 years. It only has ever so slightly of a tilt.
And there is the ruby.
Three down, 2 to go for Moxes.
Ah,
Yeah.
there's
There's our guy.
our namesake.
He's just been waiting 25 years to get some air, man. Sapphire and
There
Lotus.
is the Lotus.
And the A call. It was in pack 6. Beautiful Chaos Orb.
Power 10.
And the final Mox. Beautiful cards.
Awesome.
So now that you've opened a collector's edition set, what are your first thoughts?
I like them a lot more than I thought I would. I kind of thought it was almost like expensive proxies in a way.
Sure.
But the quality of these is higher than I expected, in the actual visual of the cards is a lot better than I expected. The cards were in great shape. I mean, the way that you and the previous owner preserved them, the corners are all in great shape. I don't see any wear or anything. Centering across the board is actually not as bad as I might have suspected they would end up being. So very, very happy to have this set, and now something I can actually sleeve up and play.
I'm excited to see you across the table jamming some fun old school games. 93, 94 is a format that can literally live forever if we decide to as a community play it. I think that there are many iterations, and I don't think any of them are wrong. I think there's no wrong way to play these old cards, and I feel honored to be part of this opening video, so thank you, Tony. And,
Agree to everything, and thank you, Angelo, for making this possible and making these available. Because I know you really didn't at first want to give these up, but you kind of thought, well, here's another Paladin in need, and you made them available. So thank you for that. I want to thank Joe Freshwater as well, our community organizer, for bringing me into the community and making that possible. So I'm excited to sleeve these up and start playing.
I want to give a shout out to Sean Schulte right now for doing all this hard work, getting this stuff videoed for us. We really appreciate everything you do for the Paladin community, man.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. See you next time, everyone.